This is Izzy Dakota Jones here. How y'all doing? And this is the Art of Doing podcast. I'm here with Lance Schilka. Yeah, Lance Schilka. And Lance has a radio station in Mission, BC called Mnet Radio. And Bad Cat Studios he also has going on. Development of new artists and different kinds of people throughout the Lower Mainland and stuff. And he's also a drummer himself, been a musician for a long time. And we're going to have a little chat with him. And he won an award last year, 2019, for his radio station, Mnet Radio. And so we'll be talking to Lance here in a few minutes, okay? So hang in there. This is Izzy Dakota Jones, and this is The Art of Doing. So, hey, Lance, let's have a chat. When did you start Mnet Radio? What was it, 2015 you started around then?
Yeah, you got that. It was Mnet Radio actually went on the end of December 14th in 2015. So we're just in our 5th year now.
Right on. And last year actually now you won an award for your radio station, didn't you?
Well, we actually didn't get any awards, but I was nominated for 2 awards with the Canadian Live Music Association.
Oh, cool.
But that had to do mostly with the Mnet Radio Music Festival, which unfortunately I'm not doing anymore. But we did it for 3 years, and got recognized for it. That was real nice. That's
pretty cool. And so your format, you say, is more about music, driven more into the music and into the, as far as, like I would say local people, right? Like more local artists. Do you have some international artists too that you promote for your station?
Okay, so yeah, we started out 100% CanCon, so that was the original format, but what we found was we were being inundated by international artists and labels, and so we kind of had to open the door for that. So since early 2018, we started actually spinning independent artists we have a bunch of labels that send us stuff from Europe and Japan, United States, all over the world, really. And recently Australia has been getting on board. We got quite a few listeners in Australia now.
Oh, that's good. That's really cool.
Oh, yeah, great.
I mean,
it's a lot of work, man, but it's a labor of love, right?
Yeah, and it must open your eyes up to a lot of the different markets. What people are listening to. I know when I do this podcast, I get I talk to a couple friends of mine who used to live here. One friend of mine lives in London. My record label, one of the guys now lives in the south of France, right? So
right.
And it's different. The scenes are not totally different, but it's different the way they approach listening to music, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely, there's certainly stronger genres in different markets, and of course, each one has its own stylized sound, I find.
Yeah.
More or less. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that must pique the interests of the people here, too, in the city, in Vancouver and Lower Mainland, right?
Well, I certainly hope so. I think that, it really depends on your demographic, what you listen to. And I would have put myself in that same category, but, being a programmer for radio station, I hear a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Good, bad, indifferent, but I've had to open my ears, and I'm fairly open-minded to music, but there's just some genres that I'm not that drawn to, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But not to say that they aren't worthy and that they don't have great artists in those genres, and that's what I've been finding out over the years. So the format for Mnet Radio now is a lot broader, and you'll hear hip-hop, you'll hear rap, you'll hear, R&B, you'll hear rock, pop, progressive. You'll hear everything, and what we really hope is that listeners appreciate that we actually listen to all this stuff before we put it on the air, and we think this is the best of the independent music that we're getting.
I would think that's like how can I say it, like back in the days, concerts used to have they're not so much now, but back in the days, years and years and years ago, they used to be like you would have 3 different acts, say, and all 3 were different. Like the variety of the acts were totally different. And I actually really enjoyed the shows because you could go and catch this, pretty heavy rock band playing, and then they'd have like a blues act opening up for them, with a folk singer, right? And you just would go, how in the hell does this work? But you go and you go like, you know what? This is not bad, and everybody gets off on it because there's something for everybody, right, in the crowd.
And I think that to a degree, all music is rooted in the same place, and it's just how it's presented. And sometimes your mind is opened, a door opens when you hear even just a part of one song. I like to think about my own experience with country music, which I'm not that fond of, but the song Diamond Mine by Blue Rodeo.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a crossover band to some degree in mainstream radio, in pop radio, and that song really did it for me. It opened my eyes to, hey, I'm going to listen to these guys, and I was blown away by their entire repertoire. So that opened a door,
Yeah, I went and saw them at the P&E last year. Last summer they were there, and you know what? I've never seen them before, but listen, I've heard them lots too on the radio and that. I was actually really impressed with them. Like I just thought these guys just got it down. Like they know what they're doing. They're craft. They're good craft. Their songs are crafted well. And
they have a sound that's all theirs too.
Yeah, that's so important. Yeah.
It is.
It's so important because I think some bands either get it right off the bat, or some bands sort of struggle and then they get it, like it's sort of always been like that. I don't think it's ever changed, like when you hear you like you said, when you hear a Blue Rodeo song, you know who it is, right? I mean, it's
for sure.
It's
no mistaking it.
Yeah, and that's cool because then people can relate to that band, right? And there's more songs in their library probably you find out that you'll end up liking, right?
Oh, without a doubt. And one thing I've learned in the music business all the years that I've been in it, and I've had a lot of different paths as far as my own being an artist player, wanted to be the greatest drummer and be able to do all the rudiments beyond belief. But what it really boils down to is the songs.
Yep.
And that's the hardest thing to accomplish in music, is to write a good song. It doesn't really matter how good you are at your instrument. It's how good you are writing a song and then performing it.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of it has to do with the actual songs, and I agree with you as a songwriter. I've always strived for writing the better songs, putting my best foot forward. Like I had a player that used to play with me, a friend of mine I went to school with a long time ago in the Twitch, and one time his son was starting to get into playing music and stuff, and his son came up to me and said, what. You and Dad write songs all the time, and he was actually a very good writer. He had really, especially musically, he was really good in the hooks, right, and stuff.
Right.
And he knew where to put the hook, right, and he was really good at it. And the thing was, he said to me, he says, what do you do, and that makes you be consistent and good at it, or always trying to get better at it. I says, you got to do it every day. I says, so I say, if you write lyrics, I says, let's take up the topic of lyrics, because I'm writing lyrics today. I said, you know what? I get up in the morning and I'll write down whatever comes out of my head, even if it's garbage, every morning for 5 minutes. He says, that's all.
It's such a discipline, eh?
Yeah. Just 5 minutes. Just do it for 5 minutes. And I says, and then you will see that you eventually see that you'll get better at it. I says, and you may toss out more stuff than you keep. I said, but the thing is, you're consistently doing it. And I do that with songwriting myself. I write every day for 20 minutes, half an hour, 30 minutes, whatever I got. Because I want to write a really good tune. I want to be able to get people to say to me, hey, I really connect with when I listen to that song. That's what I get out of it, right?
I must have written 100 million copy sellers in my life, but I never wrote them down.
Yeah.
It's so true, man. And just having that discipline to continue to hone your skills and learn more about yourself as a writer and an artist, and how much of your own personality and emotion and life experience you want to put into the songs too. That's always a balance that you have to find, right?
Yeah, and I think sometimes too, like in my situation, in a group situation, I'll bring the idea to everybody, and it's interesting to watch sometimes how people take a listen to it and then they put their own take on it, right? And then, and most times I'm pretty happy with what people do, and if I don't, I'll say, hey, I think we're kind of going off the track here a bit. This is what I meant, but
it's really hard to translate sometimes the original creative idea and draft of what you've written, and sometimes you have room for a creative license for other people to put their thing into it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have a definite sound idea, concept, phrasing, arrangement that you just don't want anybody to play with, and that usually tends to be a sore spot with some players. But when you get a group of people that understand that, and they know when to step in and when to sort of sit back and say, okay, I don't need to be a shredder here, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, that's true.
That's a perfect balance. If you can find that, you keep it. You're sailing.
Yeah, and in your bio too, you have a studio, Bad Cat Studio, right?
Okay, so Bad Cat Studios. A little story. I used to live on the corner of Badger and Bobcat, and we put a recording studio in that house. And the person that I was working with at the time were like, well, we have to come up with a name for this. So he came up with Bad Cat, which is, sort of an acronym thing of Badger and Bobcat put together. So that kind of stuck, and then we got the logo with the cat. And but we don't actually call it Bad Cat anymore. It's just the Mnet Radio Studio.
Oh, cool.
It's gone through a lot of different phases. Like, it moved from the house into our first venue that we opened in 2015 in Mission here, the Big Mish Music City. And so we operated recording studio, the radio station, and a performance venue out of this commercial space.
Right.
And that was going along really well, but my partner and I kind of decided that he wanted to do what we were doing and I wanted to grow. So I sort of sprung out on my own, and I ended up having a warehouse that I had to move out of for licensing and permitting reasons. They wouldn't allow a venue in there.
Right.
It's really tough to get a venue. So I got this new building, 2,400 square foot space that the radio station broadcasts from, and we are also recording videos and audio, and it's kind of like an executive rehearsal space. We don't really like to rent it out as a rehearsal space because it's kind of above the price threshold for a lot of independent bands just because of what it is. And but yeah, so it's kind of growing into this, and it's growing as fast as the radio station is. To be honest with you.
Wow. Cool.
Almost too much for just one man.
Yeah. Because you start wondering after.
My guys.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because when things start rolling, you start going like, holy shit, this is more than I bit off to chew, right?
Yeah, you can't always tell what's going to come down the road at you, and hopefully you can, get out of the way or jump on. So.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know. There comes a point where you got to look at it and you go like, oh, smoke, we're starting to grow, or things are changing, and I either got to get somebody to give me a hand, or I'm going to have to figure something out here.
Well, the whole thing started with Bad Cat Studios that was a project to complete a whole lot of music that I'd written over the years that I never fully completed, and I decided to invest into a recording studio, and here I am over four and a half years later, and I'm still not recording my stuff, but I'm happy to say that I am now just getting back into it, and we're dedicating the first half of this year just for my own project and getting my music out there.
Good.
Yeah, well, we want people to see what the studio can do as well. I mean, as far as, the quality of the product that we can produce.
Yeah.
And so, you can't just sell that to people with words. They got to see the product. So I think that's the next move for us for sure. But in the meantime, Mnet Radio has been, growing and growing all the time too. and that's pretty much what I do every morning, is go through the emails and listen to all the new music, and promote, get on your social networking, and let the world know you're still out there.
Yeah, and that's great, because I'm really impressed with your station, because like you said, it's such a variety, and that's important. It really is important, because then you reach a lot of people with a lot of different interests. Like one of the girls in my band, Nicole. Nicole.
Yeah.
Nicole and I went to a couple concerts. Her and her boyfriend and a bunch of people. I went to some shows that I would never go to. So,
right.
And I went, and I had a really good time. And Nicole said, "Did you have a good time?" I said, "Of course I did. I had a great time."
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, I said, because it was different. It was not out of my norm of not to listen to stuff, but it was different enough that I went, okay, this opens my eyes to a whole variety of things, a whole different way of looking at the way people are approaching music, and still, at the same time, a lot of these people are doing stuff they did 20 years ago, 30 years ago. You know what I mean? Like how they're approaching the shows, how they're playing the music, how they're trying to be different, how they're trying to be creative. And a lot of these bands I saw one night were like bands I've never heard of before in Vancouver, but had success, in the U.S. or in Europe. And then you listen to them, and they're at that infant stage where, Lance, they're creative. There's a lot of creative juices going, and they're not quite there yet, but they're exciting enough to watch. It's kind of interesting, right? I kind of find that.
And it's really fun if you do sort of hook onto a group that you've discovered in that sort of a manner, and you start to follow them, and it's a really interesting road sometimes to see where it goes and how they mature, and
oh yeah, it's interesting. So I saw.
It's like growing a garden.
Yeah, it is. It's like I saw last late September, and I only heard of the band a couple times. Ghost, right? Believe it, and they're huge, and I didn't know anything of them. And so I heard a couple songs on the radio, and a couple songs, a couple of their videos, and I went, well, they're coming to the Coliseum, I'm going to go. So I went to the show, and you know what? They fucking, excuse my language, but they blew me away. They blew me away. I was like, the guy singing.
Money well spent.
Yeah, the guy singing has an incredible voice for a rock singer. And after that, like Beth in my band, she said to me, "How was the show? I wanted to go." And I said, Beth, he's probably one of the best rock singers right now. Period. I says,
wow.
I was that.
That's saying a lot.
I was super impressed with this guy. He didn't sing flat or sharp that I noticed at all. With all the energy and everything that's coming out of him, he was controlled. He at the same time he was dynamic on stage. I says, I haven't seen somebody like that for a long time. I says, this guy is like, he's really I don't know where people don't get it that this guy can't sing. I mean, like this guy, if they don't catch on to this guy, they're crazy, because he's the band's great. The band's incredible players and stuff. And they have an incredible, wicked, really weird show. It's a very, very gothic-y kind of thing. And it's kind of cool. But, the show is unreal. The band's really good, but the singer is just like mind-boggling. And I'm just like, wow, I couldn't believe how good they were. And it's, and it was like half the Coliseum. That's it, It's they're your typical rock show these days, right?
Well, I hate to say it, but I mean, rock is really struggling as a mainstream genre these days.
Yeah.
And you know what? It is what it is. I think rock put jazz out of business, and now maybe hip hop is putting, rock out of business. But rock will never die, as jazz never died.
Exactly.
You just become this sort of underground following, if you will.
Yeah.
And so there's probably not $1 million in it anymore if you're a rock artist, but
yeah.
For a lot of people, that's not why they're making music, and that's the true form of the art, I think.
Yeah. And you will know that because, like, you've got your finger on the pulse. Like you said, you get people sending you stuff all the time, right? So you know exactly what people are listening to right now, and that's impressive too. And then you you get a great idea of what is going on globally, right? Like how people are grooving, what people will listen to, what people won't listen to.
That brings me to, I wasn't directly heading here, but all those things you said are very reverent in the sense that as an artist, as a producer, as a promoter, I've done all of it, right?
Yeah.
And I think live music is dying, and I have my own sort of, formulas as to why this is happening. And one of the reasons is that there's a new genre that's taken over the castle, if you will, and it's dominated by young people who really have never seen live music or experienced live music.
Yeah.
And I think most of us older folks,
yeah.
We all, our first experience with music was probably a live show, at your school, which they don't do anymore, which they should be doing. And there's lots of people out there trying to get it back in schools. But young people have to become involved in live music again. And, it's a lot harder a lot harder done than said because there's no venues. There's still this stigma about live music being, a problem to control. And, so we got to think, how do we get people back into live music? And, rock has been great because you see a lot of the people, like, let's take Rush, for instance, and, God rest Neil Peart. It's been a devastating week for a lot of us diehard fans.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think really stood out at the Clockwork Angels and our 40 tour that I was at, so a lot of the people like myself, and I don't actually have kids, but they're bringing their kids to this, right?
Yeah.
And that's the greatest thing. And I talked to Al Harlow from Prism about this at one time, and I said, so, what do you think? What's going on out there? And he said, you know what? We're not selling music anymore. We're selling sentiment. And, people remember this song when they were a teenager and maybe they're making out with their first love or it's something that has a nostalgic value.
Yeah.
And that's what's bringing people out to see them. But he made the comment that a lot of them are bringing their kids, and that's a really great thing because kids got to get back into live music, man. And I think that'll revive rock to some degree. Let people decide what they want to hear, which is kind of what Mnet Radio is all about. Maybe you've never heard it before because of social peer pressure where, you can only listen to this or you can only listen to that, which we experienced when we were younger too.
Yes.
So Mnet's kind of trying to be diverse, and we're trying to sort of crack that mold and say, hey, everybody have a listen, old, young. It's all great. There's some wonderful songs out there being written by new artists and
there is
established artists like yourselves.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to break into that. People, bring your kids out to see live music. Is so important. It
is. And funny you say about the sentiment thing. I just did an interview with a friend of mine. Used to play with me in the Twitch too. Woody James, and he lives out in Chilliwack, but now and I just did a interview with Woody, and Woody is a classic rock writer, right? So he'll write anything from like a Deep Purple song to like like an idea to a I don't know, like a Rolling Stones thing, and he writes with what influenced him, like we all do, but like Woody plays every week. He's out. He plays somewhere in this province every week.
He's die hard.
He is, and I said to him the other day, I says, "You're a phenomenal guitar player, a really good singer, and I get what you're doing." But I said, Woody, how do the people? What are you doing that keeps everybody coming to see you at the bars, right? And he said to me, he said, I play classic music. And he says, and it takes them back, just what you said, it takes them back to somewhere where they remember that moment. And he says, and it's like we go back, no, his words were, we go back in time. And, he says the whole night goes back in time. It says it's really weird. He says like a time warp. He goes, and then I
time
get
machine. Yeah.
Yeah, he says I come out of that bar, and I'm right back to 2020. He says, but when I'm playing, everybody remembers this tune, or I'm playing one of my tunes and somebody remembers my tune back here. They come to see me. He says it just goes back and back, and he says, he says until people tell me they don't come anymore. He says I'm just going to keep doing it, right?
The power of live music.
Yeah,
It really is. And I mean, I got to tell you, right? So I got really tired of listening to mainstream radio, which is kind of why Mnet Radio came along as this no commercials, non-commercial, straight ahead about the music, about the artists, which you know because I've interviewed you for Mnet Radio, and
yes.
I interview people from all over the world, primarily Canada and the U.S. because it costs a lot of money to call international.
Yeah.
But you know, I've definitely got that sort of finger on that pulse, and Mnet Radio has to continue to be about the artists and the music, and I don't want to ever make a commercial. And there's comedy stuff on there too, just to mix it up, and then we like to throw in the audio interview and get right back to the music. So you're never going to get bored listening to it. You're going to hear stuff you've never heard before, and hopefully you'll like it all, because we definitely do.
That's important. I'm glad what you're doing, Lance. I really do. I'm not just saying that. I think what you're doing is very, very important. Not just in this, not just here, but everywhere else. Like it's almost like we need to be able to hear just the music and just the artistry of the art, right? Because it's lacking hugely, like you said, because I mean, I don't even listen to commercial radio. I can't stand it. I mean, I
love the songs, but I can't stand the format.
I go, the only time I hear it's when I'm at my day job, so I hear they got it on, and so I mean, I've got to be somewhat entertained, and then I'm sort of sitting there going like, man, I can place the time this song's going to come on. Like they play it every.
You know what pisses me off more than anything is that if you listen to mainstream pop radio, you would think that those artists only know how to play those fucking songs. Pardon my French.
No, yeah.
You wouldn't realize that they have repertoire longer than your leg of songs that really deserve just as much attention.
Yeah.
But these guys just want to keep logging us with the same stuff over and over again.
I know.
And that's what really ticks me off.
That's what ticks me off too, because like I said, you can listen to, I can go to work and work the same shift, for 5 days in a row, and at 3:00 every day, I hear the same songs, and I'm going like, holy smoke, I'm in a time warp. Talk about time warp. I'm in a time warp. This happens every day. And not only I can't stand my day job, I can't stand the radio's killing me at the same time.
I don't know, those program directors, either they are being told what to do, and I think to some degree that's true. I think advertising has a huge influence on what gets played.
Oh, yeah.
And those people are not in touch with reality. And I will say one thing, like one of the stations, the Jack, that well known for playing, standards and so on and so forth. I've noticed that their programming format is a lot more diverse now. When I've heard it, I'm hearing songs on there that I never thought I would hear on such a station.
And if I listen to anything besides, I do listen to your stuff, and and the only other station I listen to is the Bellingham station.
Okay. KISM?
Yeah, because I used to get interviewed on that with a couple of people when they had locals only.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's a lot more American sound, based music, but it's different.
Diverse, yeah.
It's really diverse, and I went like, this is good. At least I can drive in my car and listen to this if I got to go somewhere far. Because it's different enough that they change it up, and I know it's a different market altogether, right? And it's kind of interesting because it's a small town. Bellingham's such a small town, so it's like small town USA. You're listening to.
They got a huge transmitter too, man.
Oh yeah.
Loud and clear out here. But they're all copying me as far as I'm concerned.
Sure they are. Yeah.
Diversity, man. Let's listen. Let's open our minds and our ears
Yes.
Enrich our lives a little more than, listening to the same stuff over and over again from artists that you'll never ever see again. So
that's right.
What's really important is to support the independent up and coming acts that you can go see.
Yeah.
And hey man, we got to keep live music alive. And honestly, who are the icons and the legends of the future? In today's mainstream pop, I don't see anybody really that has that longevity. I mean, and it's not really a failing on their behalf, because I mean, you think about how many great artists put out some flops, but they were able to survive because in that market, in that age, if you flop, you didn't necessarily get wiped out. Whereas now, if you don't have a commercial success, the record companies, they just put you on a shelf and you eat your record contract and you end up owing them a lot of money. So don't sign record contracts, people. They're not worth it.
No, they're not. They're not worth it. No, they're not.
No. They're servitude.
That's a good word. Yeah. So before
politically correct.
Yeah, exactly. So what's up and coming for your station in the next while? What's coming up?
Oh man, so we want to start actually doing some live simulcasting from the studio here.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, we're going to get bands in here. I mean, it's not a new idea, but what we're going to do is we're going to simulcast audio-visual. So that's more or less, I think that's sort of the new age venue now, because regulation and permitting and licensing is almost cost prohibitive, and that's why we're seeing these venues disappear. And bands don't want to. That's a
really good idea, because what's his name was doing some of that sometime. I don't know if you know Gene Greenwood. And well, Gene Greenwood's a video.
Oh yes. Okay, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because Gene, he's videoed me tons of times, and he's done a lot of major people like Slash, a lot of country artists, Rolling Stones, everybody.
He's really good at what he does.
Really good. Gene is very good. And Gene started to do that. I don't know how much he's done. He's not done a lot of it, but he has done what you're saying is like the simulcast and like the live filming. Yeah, and it's a great idea. I think it's the next best thing to do. I really do.
Yeah, well, what we intend to do is to make it a regular thing, so it's not like, gee, I wonder if they're on this Friday or Saturday. We want to make it a regular programming thing, and that way people know that there's always going to be a show, a band coming from Mnet TV, which is what we're going to call it.
Good.
And
good.
Yeah, and we'll be able to simulcast and podcast and the whole 9 yards. So we've invested a lot of money into the infrastructure for that. But it's extremely complicated, and to do it right, you really have to take your time.
Yeah.
And with so many pokers in the fire, sometimes you have to be a little more driven to what's happening today, as opposed to what you're hoping to be driving tomorrow. So it's coming, and we're looking forward to that. And I think the digital venue is kind of the future for live music, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think so.
You can't get a drink and drive anymore, and don't do that, people. It's stupid. But when we were younger, you could get away with a couple of beers, and nobody was the worse for it. But some people really screwed that up and did some bad things because of it. And now we have this environment of 2-drink minimum or max, and you're staying home because you don't want to take a chance. So with technology, big screens, and surround sound, theater sound at home, we're hoping to bring that experience as much as possible to people at home.
Well, that's what Gene was telling me, that like the bigger groups are going to eventually end up doing too. So you're going to see like the veteran bands, say like Paul McCartney or the Rolling Stones. Eventually, they're not going to tour anymore. What they'll do is they'll do one live simulcast somewhere, right? And then they'll distribute it out throughout the world, and that's it. Something like Elvis did way back when he did the Hawaii show, right? He just that was way ahead of its time. They just bounced off all the satellites and live in Hawaii to like 7 20 nations, right? And man, he didn't have to go and tour. He just did one big show, and man, he made a lot of money off that. Him and the Colonel made a lot of money off that, right?
Well, I'll tell you what, man, it's a digital world today, and it's never going to change. It's only going to continue to, metamorphosize into the next best thing. So if you can't beat them, join them. And honestly, I don't think Spotify is really the best thing for music. I realize we all have to be there to have a presence. But, that kind of brings me back to why Mnet Radio is so good, because you don't get to choose what you listen to. You're being exposed to stuff you've never heard before, and that in itself is exciting if you love music. And being able to bring a visual medium to that format as well. Let's face it, if it doesn't have a video attached to it nowadays, people just don't really bother with it.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's what we're hoping for, is something affordable to give bands an opportunity to be seen and heard.
Right on. Well, I want to thank you, Lance. I'm going to be cutting out here, and I appreciate that. And I keep going with the progress, man, because that's great. I mean, you're doing the right thing for music in general. That for people who love music, and
I appreciate that. Thank you very
much. That's really that's a huge undertaking, and not only as we know, but it's the right thing to do, because music plays such an important part in everybody's life, right? So
can't live without it.
Yeah, can't live without it. I want to thank you, Lance, and good luck for 2020. All right.
You bet. And if people want to know more about what we're doing, get on Facebook, Mnet Radio, and also get on the Mnet Radio Music Club. Join us, and you'll know what we're doing all the time.
That's great. Thanks, Lance.
Thank you. Okay. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, bye. This is Izzy Dakota Jones, and you'll be listening to Mnet Radio with the Twitch Devil's Level. Check the new single out on Spotify and iTunes, and you can catch the Twitch live January 17th down at the 340 Pub down on Cambie Street, downtown Vancouver, around 10 o'clock at night. It's been snowing like hell, but you can still come out and check the show out. So check the new single, Devil's Level, the Twitch, and we'll have a brand new video coming your way at the end of the month, and you can check the new video out too. This is Izzy Dakota Jones with the Twitch. Check out Mnet Radio with Izzy Dakota Jones. I'm the only one here. The rest of the people are stuck in the snow. See you later. Bye.